This is the first time we do such an event as Philips, where we bring customers from all over the world and talk really on the topic of food and what lighting can do. And I think we envisioned this a few months ago. Very proud to see the team has put together the first event. We do this for fashion every year for the last 5 years, but this is the first time we do for food. So very happy to see that we could manage to get a gathering like this. I've been requested to give a bit of an introduction about lighting. Lighting as our company, Philips Lighting, and a bit about the trends in food retail particularly, and just give you a bit of a sneak preview into what innovations you might see in the next 2 days. So without further ado, let me quickly get started about ourselves as Philips Lighting. We are about €7.5 billion business globally. We serve customers around 130 countries. For instance, Carrefour is here. We serve pretty much Carrefour everywhere in the world. We have about 33,000 employees globally across 60 locations. LED is a big part of our portfolio. About half of our portfolio is LED lighting, and it's growing very fast. We also are number one player in the connected lighting, essentially connecting all the light points through a control or through a software and bringing more value to customers. And if you look at what we sell bulbs, old-fashioned bulbs and LED bulbs. We sell lighting electronics. We sell fully finished lighting fixtures, or luminaire, we call them, and we also sell system and services. System services is becoming almost close to 8 to 9% of our business for overall lighting. But what we sell and what we do and what brings us to work is essentially enhancing life with light. So what you see is, with light, you can create city branding. This is an example of New York City, where we took the old, what's it called, the Empire State Building, and renovated with LED lighting, where you can create about 10 million different colors. And that has just created a different scene altogether in New York, depending on election period or in the time of a particular social campaign, for instance. Similarly, using LED lighting, we are able to create fabulous shopping destinations. What you see here is a Moscow shopping mall, which was losing its clientele every year, and we turned that into a fantastic shopping destination using LED lighting. And the shopping mall uses the display also as an advertising real estate. There are a couple of more examples you see here about using light as a bespoke architecture material. You also see light as a tool to create catwalk experience in fashion stores, like you see here in Ted Baker. Also, we offer solutions for guest comfort in hotel rooms. We also are proud to control the whole Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world, using our lighting control system, using one head-end software. In future, we also see that lighting grid can act as a central nervous system for retail. One of the examples that you will see here is in the area of indoor positioning, where you can use coded light to locate mobile phones inside the store. With that, you can create enormous use cases to either do shopper engagement, or do stock refilling, or do analytics for your store. So essentially, combining all these pieces together, we enhance life with light as Philips Lighting. Now looking at retail hospitality particularly, since that's a topic of, especially retail is a topic of discussion for next 2 days. I would just like to talk about 3 mega trends that we see happening. First is connected, which is a technology trend. Second is a demographic trend, which is millennials. And third is an ongoing journey of sustainability. Connected, what it means is close to 5 billion consumers connected through smart devices to about 50 billion devices, sensors, or even light points. And there's estimated in retail from McKinsey that about 1 trillion value can be created just by a combination of these two in next 10 to 15 years. Second big trend we see is millennials. It's a demographic trend. Anywhere in the world you see population that was born after 1980 contributes between 25 to 30 to even 40% of the total population. These are not kids anymore. They're actually a dominant shopper, and they are driving quite a few changes in the retail environment. And last but not least, sustainability. As a lighting company, we believe we can bring about 50% saving just by switching over to LED and controls in a retail and hospitality environment. We'll also talk about horticulture lighting, where you can even improve productivity using LED lighting in your farms or in your supply chain. So you must be wondering what it means for us in this room, people who are coming from really interested to listen about food. So we kind of summarize 5 implications of these trends on the food value chain. The first one is food as a segment is growing, as a space it's growing. Within that, food is getting more fresh, more local, more organic. Food is also becoming the glue of retail, where people buy a lot of stuff online, but they would like to go outside and meet their friends and have a freshly baked pizza, for instance. We also see food is getting more digital from the shopper perspective, where shoppers are moving more towards an omni-channel experience, and also from supply chain perspective, as cost of sensors and data becomes low and low, you can make your supply chain also more smarter. Last but not the least, it's a cause of worry for everybody, is the food is also short. If you have to serve the citizens of the world in 2050, you have a 70% gap in food supply today. So let's maybe talk about these 5 briefly. Let me take you through them. Food is growing. To underpin it with a bit of numbers from economics perspective, if you look at health-oriented food categories, globally these categories are going about 5%. And within food format, if you look at it, fresh food format is growing by 10%. While retailers are cutting down a number of stores globally, you see the fresh food format is actually growing about 10%. And within Netherlands, since we are in Netherlands, I pulled a data point. Over the last 7 to 8 years, if you see in Netherlands, the Dutch people are buying less bikes and less shoes, and they're buying more fresh food, and they're buying more IT products. So it's probably fair to say that the Apple is consuming most of your out-of-pocket expense. Why this is happening? I think the one big reason why it's happening is also the fresh food movement. If you have to summarize fresh food movement, there are 3 areas I would bucket it, and there's quite some research done in this area. If you want to read, there's a very nice study done by Nielsen, where they interviewed about 30,000 consumers online in 60 countries. There's also a very nice report done by World Bank on the supply of food and the whole supply chain of food. So if you don't want to read those reports, here's what you need to know. There are just three things you should keep in mind. First is how the food is sourced. What goes into your seeds, into your food? Are they artificial ingredients, genetically modified ingredients, or they are pure organic ingredients? And last but not the least, the nutrition value of your food. So very quickly, taking 3 of them one by one. Sustainable sourcing, I just picked one story. I'm from India originally, so I was very proud to see this article a few months ago. There's a small state in India called Sikkim. It's a very tiny one. If you look at it, you probably don't even find it easily in an Indian map. It's a landlocked state. You can't access by plane or you can't access by train. You have to really go by the cart or by the road. This state was having a serious problem in 2003, where most of the production was done through artificial pesticides and fertilizer. And that was causing poisoning for kids, that was causing poisoning for animals, and also erosion of water table inside the state. So the chief minister at that time, he took a target to convert that state into a fully organic state. So what happened in last 12 years, they transformed the whole state from heavily dependent on pesticides to a fully organic state. And it's the same level now, it's considered as Cuba or California, Wisconsin, or even Denmark. They grow everything using biologically produced pesticides or fertilizer. Seeds are fully organic. And the good news is that the production has not dropped. Production per square meter hasn't dropped. Other good news is the earnings have doubled up because people are looking for more and more fresh food. So the farmers have benefited from such a measure. Second one is back to the basics. As we all know, actually before we go there, you see the picture of the corn here. If you close your eyes, this is not the color of the corn you would see. You'd see a very shiny golden corn. That's how we've been marketed for the last so many years. This is how the corn looks like. Unfortunately, about 80% of the world's corn, soybean, and cotton is genetically modified. And there is now more and more movement for retailers to look at non-genetically modified organisms, products which are carrying this logo or products which are not even carrying the logo but have GMO, non-GMO ingredients. And there's been money to be made. You see here close to $500 billion market already exists for non-GMO products, which is growing by 15% globally. This also, if you read some of these reports, you find is one of the biggest concerns in Europe, that consumers are more and more aware of these issues and they want to avoid genetically modified products in their palate. The third one is more and more awareness about health, more and more awareness about nutrition-rich food. Here you see a very interesting trend around the millennials. Millennials are almost, in this survey they found about 40% of the millennials are willing to pay the premium for healthy, nutritious products, compared to the older generation, which is about 20%. Still, consumers are willing to pay more premium, but in millennials you see, which is a future-looking generation, there'll be more and more interest in nutrition-rich products. So if you as a retailer have to pick these 3 strategies, You could pick one of them or you could pick three of them, how you market yourself. But from supply chain perspective, I would invite you to look at all three of them. I think they have synergies between the three of them. While food is getting freshly cooked is also becoming fashion. So you see more and more people actually, this is a lovely picture on the left. You see Albert Heijn XL. Those who have not been to Eindhoven before, I would invite you to go to a store in a place called Limburglaan. We can give you this information later on, and that's a wonderful store. I'm always inspired every time I go there. There's a chef over here cooking freshly cooked pizza. You can get sushi, you can get freshly cooked salad, quite a few things. So they transform a store to a destination where you can go and enjoy a fresh meal with your friends. It's kind of gluing the consumer from buying things online and getting them dropped at home to really going out there into the store and having a unique, differentiated experience. Other thing we also see is another nice brand I like a lot is Urban Outfitters. They form partnership with the coffee bean manufacturer and coffee roaster called Black Sheep in UK. And they are opening up cafes in their fashion stores where consumers can come and try a nice cup of coffee. So you can also try new strategies by forming alliances to bring more experience inside the store. I personally believe we are not too far away to see farmers actually selling their fresh produce inside the stores, but I think it will happen in future. The trend of connected and millennials we also see is driving consumers to buy more products on the go through their phones. There's one example I see here is a company called Peapod in Chicago. They copied the idea of Tesco in South Korea. And what they created here is a very interesting experience, whereby shoppers on their way to work, they can go and look at a display wall of locally sourced produce. They can order it and get it shipped and pick it up at home in the evening when they go back home. So you really connect the farm to the fork through a very omni-channel, unique way. I think this will also grow more and more in supermarkets, talking about endless aisles, for example, as an idea. So that's more from the demand side where we see things are getting more digital. Also on the supply side, we see same happening. Here in Netherlands is an example of a project done by a packaging association called NBC in Netherlands. They're using RFID tags. What you see on the right-hand side below here, it's a tag which can measure humidity, temperature, carbon dioxide levels, and you can stick each of them in these pellets. And through the whole value chain, you can trace how these products, what they went through. And then you can measure, and with data, you can find out what are the anomalies in the value chain, why these products don't even make it to the store. So there's huge opportunity to look at IoT propositions in the area of supply chain. Something similar is done by NXP as well with the University of Wageningen, so I'll invite you to have a look at that as well. What we believe in future would happen is these two will come together, the supply chain and the demand side, whereby consumers can actually go use their phones to see the product, scan the product and see where it came from and what conditions it went through. So I think that's where the future is, but we all need to make a start, of course. Lastly, it's a call for action for everybody. There's a very interesting report. There's another 200 pages. If you don't want to read, this is one slide which kind of summarizes for this room. It's written by World Bank called World Resource Report 2014. What it talks about is very simple dimensions to consider. How much food that we produce today is close to 10 trillion kilocalories. And how much food we need to produce in future is about 16,000 kilocalories. So if you see, there's a gap of about 70% of what we produce versus we need to produce in 2050. And if we continue the way we continue, the report also says that you have to, if you continue the way you produce foods, the food production alone will have 70% impact on the total environmental carbon dioxide emissions. So you could imagine by 2050, if you want to keep the world temperature 2 degrees more than what it is today, you will have 70% of that coming just from food production, if this is the graph that we're looking at. So we need to do something about it today. So what's going on today? About 25% of the food produced gets wasted. And I think people in the room need to look at strategies how that can be avoided. And how that gets wasted, 50% happens in the production space, in the whole supply chain and handling. And a lot of that happens in countries like Asia, Africa, Latin America. A lot of that actually production-related losses happen in developing markets. About 10% across the world, 10 to 15% even, happens in the retail and distribution. So really the people in the room, this is the area where about 10% of the loss happens. Another 35% happened by the consumers. People just throw away food. And I think the retail industry also has the onus to educate consumers. Also, CPG brands have an onus to educate consumers not to waste food. And a lot of consumer-driven wastage happens in Europe and North America. Other thing you might want to consider here is a lot of this happens in US and Europe. So if you sum up all these wastages, about 50 to 60% is happening in North America, in developed economies, and in Europe. In future, if we were to cut this waste just by half, by deploying strategies in food production, deploying strategies in retailing and educating consumers, if we just cut it by half, not by 100%, because theoretically that's challenging to achieve, even if we cut by half, we can bring down the burden from 70% to 50%, for instance. With that, I would like to summarize, there are 5 things to consider during your time over here as well, to look for these 5 vectors that are driving the food value chain. The food is growing, that's good news. It's getting more fresh, so that's also good for health and environment. It's also gluing the retail, bringing the consumers into the store in a different way. It's also becoming more digital, so we need to look at adopting new digital ways to interact with consumers, but also enhance our value chain. And last but not least, we need to look at long-term strategies to reduce the food wastage. So what can Philips do for you? I think we have few innovations where we can proudly say we can be one of your partners from farm to the fork, and I guess you'll see some of these innovations during the course of the next 2 days. First one is horticulture lighting, whereby using artificial light, you can make food production more productive. You can also envision concepts like city farming, which were not possible in the past. Energy efficient lighting, not only from the farm, but also in your warehouse. You can bring about 50 to 70% energy saving. This is an example of a little warehouse here in Netherlands, where we brought down energy cost by 50% by putting LED lighting. Then your food moves to your store, but you also want to attract your consumers to your store. This is a great example of Italy and Rome, where we use decorative lighting and very good quality accent products to enhance the look and feel of the store, to make it more like a destination rather than just a transaction point. Again, with using simple lighting systems, you can also create different environment inside the stores. More and more stores want flexibility to host events like wine events, beer events. And what you see here is a very simple implementation in ADECA, where they can conduct different events just by changing the light setting. And if you don't want all that, very simple, good quality light spectrum can also enhance the look and feel of your food produce, whether it comes to meat, cheese, potatoes, all range of fresh produce. And with our products, I think you can enhance that look and feel of your products. Not only you can enhance, but also using the right light spectrum, you can also avoid discoloration of food, because light also impacts on the chemical composition of your products, for your potatoes, for your cheese, also for your meat. So using the right light spectrum, you can extend your shelf life by 20 to 30%, and also make consumers really feel the way they feel about meat inside the store. And it should not look more pale, it should look more red. So with using the right light spectrum, you can also address concerns of consumers, so that the way they think light products should look like, that's the way they see in the store. Which of course, makes the produce more interesting for them to buy, but also reduces wastage by extending shelf life. Last but not the least, you'll also see, we'll showcase our indoor positioning platform. We're using light, we are able to offer some sort of an indoor GPS, which can give you a very accurate location inside the store, which is very stable compared to Bluetooth or Wi-Fi technologies. With that, what you can enable is a mobile shopper journey inside the store. If a shopper wants to make a shopping list and find the products inside the store, if a shopper is searching for certain products, they can also navigate to the right shelf. And in future, you can also profile shoppers better, whereby if a person has certain allergies and is in a certain area looking for products, you can even give recommendation on the phone to tell consumers what's suitable for them, what's not suitable for them. So with these palette of innovations, I hope in next 2 days you really have a great time with us and be inspired, and we look forward to working out a couple of new propositions with you as well in future. So with that, I'd like to conclude my presentation with saying food is everywhere. Yeah.